Hi guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. Today we're back with the mid lane tier list for patch 2.4a. So as you guys know, we have been doing these very detailed tier lists where I cover every single champion that's viable in that particular role. So today we're going into mid lane where we have a ton of viable champions, and as a small reminder, this is of course for solo queue, so this is not for like a duo or trio queue. It's not for doesn't take competitive into account. It's just solely for solo queue. So of course, if you guys like all these tier lists and my videos, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And also, I have put the other tier lists that I have done for top and jungle in the cards above, so check those out if you have not already. So without further ado, let's quickly jump into the tier list. Now, I believe the best mid laner is Akali. Now, Akali, after her mini rework slash adjustment, a lot of people thought that she wouldn't be too good anymore, but in reality, it really just took her out of the Baron lane and put her into the mid lane. So of course she is still viable in both, and she was also viable in both, but she used to be better at Baron lane just to like harass the enemy laner with her range and her early game damage. But now instead she doesn't really harass very well anymore because she doesn't refund energy on when you hit your empowered auto attack. Instead, she gets more damage when she all-ins with her E, so she just becomes a straight-up assassin, and her damage is insane. For people who have mastered Akali or who are really good at Akali, honestly, she is just insane. She's just really, really good in the mid lane matchups, in the roaming, in the team fights, and she has more. AoE despite being an assassin. So like with her like ultimate, she can hit multiple targets. With her Q, she can hit multiple targets. So she's not like a single target assassin. She is like an AoE assassin. So she's just really very good and really with a lot of damage. Now closely behind her is actually Ziggs. Now Ziggs has actually been catching a couple of minor nerfs here and there, but he is still really, really strong. He has really good poking potential and of course really good tower taking potential as well. Early game he doesn't do too much damage, but in the late game or even in the mid game when you get like 2 to 3 items, he's gonna start to do a lot of damage, and with his range he can just poke out an enemy team comp before the fight even happens. So you sort of like win fights just based off your poke before the fight itself. And with the threat of the Mega Inferno Bomb ultimate, doing any kind of objectives when Ziggs is up with his ultimate available is really risky, so Ziggs is really strong. Corki, of course, with the new patch 2.4 build is really strong. He did just get a nerf in the latest patch 2.4a, but honestly, I don't think it affects him too much. He's still really, really good. And he also does 80% AP, so he's unlikely to ruin your team comp, where majority of the time your AP source is in the mid lane. However, Lucian, who is an AD champion, is also at the S plus tier in the mid lane. Although he's barely there, he might actually be like top of S tier, but he is barely there. He is of course an AD champion. Now the reason he's really good is despite his AD growth nerf and the nerf to the items that benefit him, he is still really strong. In the mid lane, he has very, very good wave control. So he has way better wave control than majority of mid laners, like those above him, honestly, because he can pretty much choose to thin the wave when he wants to, push the waves when he wants to, and just auto attack the wave when he wants to. Whereas other champions like Ziggs can really only push with his fast wave clear or just clear wave when the wave is pushing in. Same goes with like Corki and like other champions. So Lucian has the best wave control, and if you know how to use his wave control properly, you can actually get a lot of favorable tempo resets, or you can get off a lot of tempo ganks off just based off your push and all. So Lucian is still really strong. And down in the S tier we have Irelia. So Irelia, a lot of people have started to master Irelia, and I have seen a lot of good Irelias now at the moment. Now the only real issue with Irelia is the fact that she can't really control the wave very well, because she has to sort of execute the wave with her passive, and without her passive she's not really very strong. So when Irelia wants to go in on you, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty much when she clears the wave she's gonna want to go in on you, so that is very telegraphed. But aside from that, she does have very strong team fight and very strong roam. Of course she can't like 1v5, but she can outplay like 1v2s or 1v3s if the Irelia player is really good, which I have seen a lot of them now. So I do believe Irelia is very good. combined with the fact that they buffed her damage on all her abilities, other than her W a couple of patches ago, Irelia is strongly in the meta. Now, of course, we also have Orianna, who's a very strong late game champion. She is a control mage, of course, so she's not like the best, most flashy like burst champion, but she has a really good teamfight ultimate and really good utility with like her speed ups and her shields and just her general poke as well. So she is still really strong and in the meta. Now Galio is just up there just because of how much AP there is. Aside from Lucian and Irelia, the other champions are all AP, so it's really good to pick Galio into them. So you will have a relatively good laning phase, and when it gets to the later stages of the game, you are just a CC bot with your knockup on your E, as well as your taunt on your Q, as well as having a semi-global ultimate to protect your team against magic damage sources, / to give a knockup to the area around you. So Galio is just a general good pick in the mid lane. Now Zed, I actually do believe is actually S tier now. Zed is really popular, always getting picked and banned. Now a large reason for this is the Sorelda's Grudge. So when you go in with your ultimate, generally it's really hard to hit all your abilities on the enemy that you ulted to maximize your damage, because of that Shuriken Whiff nerf that we covered in the meta recap. So you guys can check out the meta recap if you guys have not yet done so. I'll link it up in the cards. But it makes it really hard to hit his abilities. But now building Sorelda's Grudge as like your first or second item, with the slow, it's a lot easier to hit your abilities, and therefore a lot easier to get out your large damage output. Now the only issue with Zed is he is pretty much a single target assassin who can only target one person. He does of course have poke with his shadow and combined with his Q, but pretty much he is a single target assassin who cannot really contribute much in teamfights other than assassinating one person. But sometimes that contribution is all you really need to win the teamfight, just to assassinate their main damage carry, be it the mid laner or the ADC, for your team to win the fight. Now, in the A tier, we have Katarina, who did get nerfed a couple of patches in a row. But if you're still a good Katarina, you can still easily snowball the game and take over from there. But Katarina, as just a casual player pick, is generally a lot lower in priority compared to the picks above her. Twisted Fate is pretty much just a stun bot with his gold card, and not the easiest to execute, but if you can get your team ahead through your Destiny ganks, then pretty much that is where his strength lies. However, Twisted Fate to a large extent is a very team reliant mid laner, which is why he's not very far out for solo queue purposes, just because of how he is reliant on his team getting ahead. And even if he does get ahead, he pretty much all he can do is get one combo and get out, and then just become a stun bot again. So now Diana did get her nerf on her ultimate, which did affect her a lot, but she is still a alright pick in solo queue with her giant AoE ultimate and her decent damage, just not as good as the picks above her. Yasuo did benefit a lot from the Solari Charge Blade addition to the game, so he is actually not too bad. Now, if you guys know how to play Yasuo, he can be really good, and I have seen a lot of Yasuos being picked up, and also quite a few good Yasuos. Now in the B tier, we have some decent like good picks, which is Ahri, Seraphine, and Fizz. Ahri, just like your general starter champion, she has a really good pick potential with her charm, but more or less single target, although she does have good mobility with her ultimate to either engage or to run away. Seraphine has a large team fight ultimate with her Encore, I believe it's called, her ultimate, as well as decent CC and utility with her E and her W as well. But generally, she's just not too good of a champion, at least compared to what the rest of the champions above her bring to the table. Fizz, single target assassin as well, much like Zed, who can take over a game if you snowball, but with his ultimate getting a huge nerf, he is not as good anymore. And I never rated Fizz too highly in the first place, even when other people were rating him highly. So now that his ultimate is getting nerfed, I do believe he's at the bottom of B tier. Now Akshan, honestly, with his buffs, I'm not too sure if the buffs will make too big of a change, but I don't really believe so. Because if Akshan is ever good, he's going to be way too good because of his revives. So I do believe Akshan is probably like at the top of C tier quiz. Situationally good, I would say, if you somehow get super duper fed and you manage to get off a lot of revives, which is a really hard condition to meet. Now, Gragas, honestly, his matchups in the mid lane is just simply not as good as in like the Baron lane or in the jungle where he has relatively good ganks and scaling. So in the mid lane, he has melee and he is fighting a lot of ranged characters. So even whether going tank hybrid or AP build, it generally isn't too good in the mid lane. Lux, a alright, just a alright pick in general. Just that there's so many things that you could pick that is better than her. Like, she has a pretty much a stun and a global ultimate. The global ultimate not really too useful except for snipes, and the stun a lot of other people I've CC like Twisted Fate, for example. So honestly not too useful in the mid lane. Now, Annie, a really good beginner champion, but she is a, you know, a one note champion where all she really does is flash or proto belt with her Tiber's stun, which is very telegraphed, very predictable. I think in low elo she probably does pretty well, but in the higher stages of gameplay she's not going to do too well. Aurelion Sol has never really found his place in the meta ever since they nerfed him to the ground. He has had a very unique playstyle, pushing and roaming kind of playstyle, but really hard for him to find a place in the current meta, unfortunately. And Pantheon, as I mentioned in the top and the jungle tier list, he is just, I don't rate him as too highly as a champion. I don't really think Pantheon as a champion is too good, because his best stage in the early game, where he's supposed to be very, very strong, isn't really even that good. He scales horribly, and he can't really one-shot anyone even when you go for lethality or damage, so I don't really think Pantheon is that good of a champion. But he is still better than the three champions who are below him, who is Kennen, Wukong, and Malphite. All three of them better in the Baron lane. Kennen and Wukong are just there for their teamfight ultimates, but their matchups in the mid lane are horrible. Kennen can't take advantage of his range because a lot of other people are ranged as well, unlike the Baron lane, where most people are melee. Same story with Wukong, who is melee. He's going to get bullied by majority of ranged champions. And Malphite, generally Malphite mid is an AP Malphite, but Malphite AP is just pretty bad. Malphite tank is just way better, and is way better being played in the top lane where his matchups are way better. So that is it for the mid lane tier list. We covered most things pretty quickly because there isn't too much to discuss for the mid lane. So that is it for this video, guys. We'll move on to the 80 carry tier list, which is the one I'm most excited talking about because it is my main role. So thank you guys for watching the video, and goodbye.